Hi, Ann.
Hi. How are PTSD and cancer related? This is a kind of a big subject for me. I think this can be, as you always say, that, the trauma starts when the call comes in. And I think that trauma doesn't only affect the person that has the cancer. It's the family too.
Absolutely.
I remember both of those phone calls. And it was a long haul, and it doesn't, like you always say, it doesn't start with just the phone calls. It's everything that comes after.
It's sort of like another call. Yeah. Right. And there are other calls. Yeah. No, and maybe in some cases, I don't know exactly, what your family situation was, but it might be a call that you are anticipating. So that can exacerbate or magnify the impact of the phone call. Or, as in my case, it was just totally out of the blue. It wasn't expected. And that unfolds to everyone around you. And in, in some ways, it becomes that it's not just your cancer after the phone call, it's everybody else's cancer. And as we've talked before, that the loss of control that one experiences being told that, because you're in a different club. Um, you don't want to be in that club,
No.
and people treat you um, as you are in that club because they love you. They want to take care of you, and they want, and they don't want to lose you. So it's a process of sometimes being in denial that you are there, and wishing that other people would deny it too, so that you could just act and be normal. But yes, cancer is not something that, I think there are other traumatic events that are unique to a person. Um, a domestic violence event is to that person. It might have involved other people in the family, but it's to that person. Being diagnosed with cancer, it affects everyone around you. I understand that. I guess the post-traumatic stress syndrome part of it is that you had very little control to get to this place. And that's probably why it is similar to other post-traumatic stress syndrome incidents, such as being a war veteran. And the real trauma is that it keeps occurring. And then what do you do about all of that? Um, Finding solutions. And finding solutions for everybody handles it differently,
There
and
you go.
and and everybody in your family is going to handle it differently. There are going to be many who are in total denial, and those that will be over solicitous, that you will want to go away. And I guess, like a yoga teacher, the important thing for a family member is to find that safe space that one can be in without being continually reminded of the fact, and yet are being mindful of doing the right thing for themselves. To be there, and I don't know if you did this with your parents or not, but being there when treatment decisions were made is really important, because those are kinds of things that should not be made alone.
Right.
And the trauma has clouded your brain, even if you are not in denial. And it's good to have many points of view and many people there to help you make the decision. And the decisions to be made may not always be, the ones leading down the path to a solution. They may have to be ones like when I was present with my father, when his diagnosis, when he didn't get a phone call, it was right there in the doctor's office. And the decision was, all of us in the family knew that his not taking treatment was going to mean a matter of
Time.
counting down days and minutes. And so there's talk about trauma. The trauma goes,
Right.
that's a real, that I can remember is a real traumatic event in my life, to say, okay, now I'm going to watch my father die.
But at times that's part of it.
Exactly.
And that's traumatic for caregivers.
It's
You know,
very traumatic for
And
caregivers.
sometimes you think about the trauma that comes with just being a caregiver. It's not I don't want to say it's not necessarily just getting the diagnosis as somebody with cancer. Sometimes it's with the support person or the caregiver or the spouse or the family member.
Right.
And it's how the trauma itself affects the mind, body in each individual person.
Yeah. We've all evolved in this era of 2022 onward, to a place that is much, much better. People are still dying of cancer. Many people are surviving cancer. But we have taken cancer out of the closet. It used to be that it wasn't talked about. You didn't even want to use the word cancer for fear that you might give somebody cancer if you use the word. So I think that we are in a much, and thankfully to yoga in many ways, thankfully to the mindfulness that the practice has brought, but the openness too of, being willing to talk about the impermanence of life and to talk about death itself. And I would imagine that's probably another connection between, veterans and cancer survivors, is that it gives us permission to talk about something that nobody wants to talk about. And, the art of graceful aging is to learn to at least think about that every day. Think about death. The other side of that life-giving breath is giving away that breath, which we will all have to do.
This is true. Yep, this is true.